Hey everyone, good evening. Apologize for the technical difficulties. As I mentioned, we have some storms moving in here where I'm at. I didn't think it would have an impact on our Zoom connection, but as you know, before starting the meeting, my video was starting to freeze and audio was lagging, so decided it'd be easier to do the recording. So a couple things I wanted to do this evening is review the slide deck for chapter 13. It's in week 7 in the course shell. It's focusing on interpreting test results. Then also want to do a quick review of this CBM assignment coming up from the syllabus, just looking at the rubric as well as a mock IEP. And then I want to take just a moment, as I mentioned last week, to kind of walk you through the steps on converting your mock IEP video in YouTube. Should you choose to do that, it's just a method or suggestion that might help you in condensing the size of your video file down. So I'm going to do a quick screen share and um, get over to my slide deck. So you should be able to see it on your screen now. Again, this is in your course shell. It's interpretation of assessment results. So I just want to go through them and kind of highlight some of the main points here. Looking at the introduction slide, talks about test results are most useful when they're interpreted and presented in a clear format with specific information relating to educational and behavioral strategies. And so I've talked a little bit about that just briefly as we prepare for the mock IEP about we're looking for more of the presentation of the material, and it's very important to try to present that in a clear, concise manner that's understandable for parents. And that's why we've also been doing some of the tables, charts, and graphs as well in your reports. Try to get you in the habit of taking your data and putting it into some type of visual representation to help parents understand. So also we look at test reports generally lack the characteristics necessary for ease of educational planning. So we want to make sure we include strategies that are used to promote education success. We want to take those results, determine eligibility, make eligibility decisions, determine whether the student is meets the criteria to qualify for special education services, and just knowing that those criteria may vary from state to state, depending on where you're at. Looking at suggested procedures, we kind of talked about the procedures, testing procedures. That was one of the things you were asked to kind of highlight and cover in the group interview project. So as you all know, we have to secure parental permission. We also want to do some screenings for sensory impairments or any physical problems that may exist. Interview the parent, get some information from them. Then we get into doing the intellectual and academic assessment. Can be used or done, accomplished using a variety of assessments. Most of those are going to be norm reference, as we've talked about that type of testing. Then we're also going to look at some behavioral assessment, and then we're going to come in and we're going to interpret the test results. We want to rule out any sensory acuity problems. Also talk with other professionals that might be working with that student, such as medical personnel. We want to determine if there's any conflicts or any environmental factors or barriers that are preventing the student from learning. And we also want to include our school psychologist or school counselor to try to help facilitate any issues that might exist there. So some suggested procedures are determining whether learning or school problems are exhibited in a particular school environment. A lot of times we'll do that in the uh, adaptive behavior skills that are provided. A lot of times that might be ABS or the Vinland 3 is a common one. Also, we want to compare their intellectual, academic, and adaptive behavior measures, and then we want to determine whether emotional or any behavioral problems exist. Same thing with speech language problems, and then also consider and assess any language factors that might impact achievement. So when we interpret test results, we want to administer assessments, whether they're formal or informal, and that's only one part of the equation, and then we have to interpret those. We hope that the results are used to determine a student's strengths and needs, which you've been doing that in your assessment reports, and looking at two different types of interpretation. Okay, so two types of interpretation. One is inter-individual interpretation, which that's when we compare the student to a peer norm group. That's your norm reference test. Then we also have what we call the intra-individual interpretation. That's comparing the student with his or her own performance, such as informal assessment, CBM. Also, this goes right along with, I mentioned briefly, either last week or the week before, um, criterion reference test. That does the exact same thing. It compares the student with his or her own performance rather than comparing them to a norm group. Also, in interpreting test results, we want to look at IQ and adaptive behavior. A lot of times, or a majority of the time, these are generally administered by the school psychologist or a psychometrist. It pinpoints strengths and weaknesses. Also, interpretation of cognitive measures that may refer to patterns of functioning, looking at similarities and differences between specific areas. And then also doing a what we call cross battery assessment, where we interpret a student's skills and abilities across multiple assessment instruments. And that's not uncommon or unheard of to use multiple assessments. When we look at educational achievement, the educator may be responsible for administering certain tests. We want to ensure the accuracy of the administration, and then we want to look at, again, the inter-individual interpretation. Again, that's a norm group, or the intra-individuals, which is basically identifying specific strengths and weaknesses, comparing that with that individual, not the norm group. Okay, so we accomplish this through the testing. Then we write up the results, just like you guys have been in this class, getting to do some of that with writing up results, putting data in visual representations. And so we want to make sure that we organize those results by developmental or functional domains. When the test is given, we want to describe their areas of strengths and skill deficits in the report, which you have been doing that. Emphasize variables or qualitative features regarding learning strategies, and highlight some developmental ceilings, functional levels, skill sequencing, and instructional needs. Recommended format, pretty much we have been following this when you create your reports from giving your assessments. We have the identifying data or information of the student, background and referral information, a bit of background on the student's family, the reason for the referral, some classroom observation information, and parent information. Then we have a section for our test results, which we're given some narratives, some explanation of that, and also providing some visual representation in tables, charts, and graphs. Following section, we'll have test interpretation, where we go in and interpret all the results. And then we have a summary and conclusion section in which we provide a summary of their overall performance, any recommendation for educational interventions, and then recommendations for further assessment if it is warranted. And then we start determining their educational objectives, writing their educational objectives. So these are three new terms. Two of the three you have been working with or will be working with as you create your mock IEP. So we're looking at some stated short-term objectives. Basically, those are observable and measurable. Provides evidence of students' progress toward their annual goals. When I referred to this in the mock IEP video format last week, for the purpose of assignment, we're looking at short-term, which is equivalent to 9-week period. Long-term is from that date moving forward to the anticipated following meeting or annual meeting for long-term goals. And then our benchmarks are major markers that provide evidence of student progress toward annual goals. You could do that through some CBM assessment and just tracking the data. So three things to consider when formulating educational objectives. Writing those are short-term objectives, behavioral short-term objectives, some benchmarking, and then also long-term goals. Reeval occurs normally under 3 years. We can call that triennial or the 3-year reeval. So those are traditionally done every 3 years, and that's decided in the meeting. Sometimes when we have older students, the team may deem it to not be necessary to do that. So we look here on this slide, talks about regulations state that data should be collected only in the areas that team members believe need additional information in order to make decisions regarding continued eligibility and interventions. Okay, so something to definitely keep in mind there. I'm going to do my stop screen share at the moment, and I am going to get over and pop up the rubric and talk just briefly and review CBMs again, just to make sure everyone's clear, on point, and progressing towards completing the assignment that'll be due this Sunday coming up. So remember, we have our identifying information. For this report, it more or less combines the background information in addition to the identifying information into one section. So a little bit of a change there from what we're used to. Moving down to our next section is the first of two new sections. We talked about this last week. The first one is probe and intervention section, so make sure you include this. You're going to make sure you name and describe the probe used, the rationale for using it, quantity and frequency of the probe use, and then describe any intervention that you implemented if needed. We talked about some students may not need it depending on their scores. If you did implement an intervention, make sure you discuss the rationale for it. And then if you had to modify that intervention in any form or fashion after you implemented it. The next section is test results and interpretation. That is the same as what we've done in our first two reports. You're presenting your data or raw data in tables, charts, and graphs. Remember, in this section, we are adding a new line graph to display our data points, and we're going to identify what we consider to be our baseline. Any intervention line, an intervention line needs to be put in if you implemented an intervention, and then also the aim line. So that graph should have your baseline, intervention line, and an aim line. So please don't forget that one item alone. That's worth 50 points out of that section. Okay, so don't overlook that. We're going to analyze our results and refer to those tables. We're going to highlight the strengths and weaknesses of the data based on the CBM results only, not taking into consideration the first two. We'll have a recommendation and conclusion section where we're going to highlight the instructional planning. Noticed a few have kind of started condensing this down to where it's very minimal. Please make sure that you talk a little bit about any instructional planning recommendations that might include modifying the content, dropping it back a grade level, whatever it may be, but just make sure you thoroughly explain that. The second new section compared to our previous reports would be the reflection section. So our first one again is probe and intervention. Second one is a reflection. As I mentioned last week, this is a lot of just your feedback on your experience from doing the CBMs. There's really no right or wrong answer to it because a lot of it is just based on your personal feelings. So we want to make sure that you include or explain at least three things that you have learned about the CBM that you administered. The next thing you want to make sure you do is discuss if you will use CBM again and why, and support your stance as to why you would or why you would not. Okay, personal feeling, no right or wrong answer on that. And then to wrap up this section, we want to make sure that you outline at least two strengths and at least two weaknesses of the CBM. What you felt like were two strengths of using it and then two weaknesses. Okay. Then make sure you include a lesson plan in your permission form. The lesson plan is all built around the areas or gaps that you identified in the CBM results. Okay, not anything else from that. So let me get my screen back up. Okay, so we want to make sure we do that. Moving down to the mock IEP, last week I showed you where to locate this, made a recommendation to you as far as following kind of the layout for that. So on page 29 in the syllabus, the top section that shows video worth 166 points. This is kind of your guideline that I would recommend that you follow if you have to put it in front of you, something just to kind of keep you on point. So I want to make sure we're doing an introduction to the meeting. You want to introduce the team that's there, even though we know they're not. Remember, this is just a mock meeting, so you want to recognize the principal, the teacher, the parents. Want to state the purpose of the IEP meeting or the purpose of this meeting. Basically, you're wanting to share some results of ongoing assessment that you've done to determine some strengths and weaknesses and also possibility of pursuing testing. You want to make sure that you state each of the assessments that you use and explain why you selected those. Talk a little bit about their present level of performance and how they progressed over time based on your observation of administering the assessments. Give a thorough explanation of each assessment with supporting data from the norm reference, CBM, and informal. Okay. The next area you want to make sure you include in the video is presenting evidence of student performance in the format of tables, graphs, and/or sample of work. So this is what I talked about. If you feel good about using technology, doing a Zoom, a screen share like this, to where you can create a slide deck and you have the information um, embedded within the slides. If you don't feel comfortable with technology and you want to literally hold up your charts, tables, and graphs and present them like this and refer to them as you are going through the meeting, that's acceptable too. Either way is fine. Please make sure that you identify and discuss at least three strengths that you've identified for the students and also three weak areas or areas in need of improvement. Also, you want to make sure that you outline two short-term SMART goals and rationale supported by data from the assessment. So remember, the short term for the purpose of this class, we want to go under the premise that it's 9 weeks. The two long-term SMART goals, we're going to go under the premise that it'll be a year down the road when we come back and do an annual meeting. Okay, so 9 week for short term, 1 year for long term. As you are starting to conclude the meeting, might offer suggestions and discuss how you would expect the parents, guardians, family members to help support and accomplish the goals that you've laid out in this meeting. Okay, so one goal, an example I gave last week was simply suggesting or recommending to the parents that they sit down 5 nights a week, 15 to 20 minutes, and do reading with the student. And that might be one method there, just as an example. Okay. So remember, in the presentation, I'm mainly looking on this for the presentation of the material, the flow of the meeting, to make sure it's clear, easy to understand, and that you're demonstrating you have an understanding of the data that you collected. Also, you want to make sure that you provide an opportunity in the video to encourage questions or input from the team members. And then also we're looking for you being able to present the information in a confident manner. Okay. If you pretty much follow this guideline here that I'm referencing under the video section, you'll be just fine and hit all the points that we're looking for within the rubric. Again, as I had mentioned before, also, videos typically average 12 to 15 minutes. I know the syllabus, it says 10 to 15. We see it being more realistically in that 12 to 15 minute mark. So again, please use this as your guideline for it, and it will help you stay on track and make sure you reach your goal covering all the areas. The next thing I want to do quickly is I'm going to do a screen share with using my Google Mail and going to YouTube to show you, uh, if you so choose to do it, to upload your Zoom video after you've recorded it into YouTube to condense the size of that file and um, create a video link that you can share back um, to or upload into Blackboard to present it. So I'm going to share my screen from my YouTube page. And so in the upper right hand corner, you see the Create tab with the addition symbol, plus sign. I'm going to hit Create Video. I'm going to next drop down and hit Upload. Upload video. So it's going to go and give me this screen next where it gives me the option to drag and drop the video files to upload. I'm going to hit Select Files and it's going to pull up my desktop. Okay, and I'm going to go and use last week's video file that I downloaded. I kept it saved on my um, desktop. You can see over here it's labeled 7/9/2025. I'm going to click that and it will become highlighted, and I'm simply going to drop down and hit Open. YouTube will automatically start the upload process. It will automatically upload, and in the title, it will put the video number assigned by Zoom by default. So always back that off, and I put SPED 805 Zoom meeting and the date. For this, I would put mock IEP and then your last name, mock IEP Posey. So you can see down here on the screen share, it takes a few minutes to upload. You can see it'll give you an indicator uploading 33%, 2 minutes left. The link is already assigned over here in the right hand corner. You want to scroll down this page a little bit and you want to make sure, yes, it is made for kids, and click on it. Yes, it's made for kids. Okay, which I did. As it is uploading, I'm going to go ahead and hit my next button. It will come and show you a page for the video elements. I'm going to continue to hit next. I don't have anything to upload. The checks page, nothing really there for checks. I'm going to hit next. Then on visibility, this will be one of the last things that you have to look at before you finalize your video. You want to make sure that you check that this is public. If you don't and you hit private, I will not be able to review the video when you put it in Blackboard to submit. Okay, so make sure you check public. Okay. You can see uploading is at 83%, 27 seconds left. Depending on the size of your file, it may take 5 minutes, it may take 15 to process. Sometimes from our Zoom classes, it may take 15 minutes or 10 to 15, just simply because the video is almost an hour long. Okay. After you get to this point and you've gotten to 100% down there and it shows everything is good, 100%, no issues found, you can therefore come over and hit your publish. You can see it's uploading. After it's uploaded, it's going to process, check for mistakes. So for time's sake on this, I'm going to go ahead and hit my publish button. Okay. It's continuing to process, but I can copy. Once it's done, you'll see the link pop up. I literally can just do a copy and paste on it here. I can go over here to my link. Video link is right here. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to copy it. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to Blackboard and where it says Submit Mock IEP. For my final, I would pull it up and then I would paste my link in there and you simply submit it. So just make sure that you check the box that says it's made for kids. The second box you'll check is that it is public. And then just continuing to hit your next button until you get to the final screen. You'll see the video link. You'll copy it or highlight it, copy it, come back over and paste it into Blackboard. So literally it's about 3 to 4 clicks of a mouse. So just kind of wanted to take that moment to show you for some of you that may not be as familiar with YouTube and how to go in and create that video. So that might save you some trouble. Again, that will condense your video, the size of it down versus trying to upload that larger file. Also, remember that if you are using Firefox or Internet Explorer as your web browser, sometimes we tend to see that cause some issues if you're trying to upload that video. We always encourage you to use Chrome for that. So another thing is that I was going to mention tonight in our class is normally with week number 8, being short and such a quick turnaround, and knowing that we don't meet until Wednesdays on Zoom. Normally don't do a Zoom meeting on uh, week 8 unless I'm getting a lot of emails with questions and concerns, and I'll put one together for like on Monday evening. But normally we don't meet on the 8th week. But again, depending on the feedback I'm getting and questions, if I see the need, then I'll schedule one and do it earlier, perhaps on Monday if needed. Remember, the CBM is due this Sunday evening at midnight, and then it is a quick turnaround before the mock IEPs due on or before 4 o'clock that following Wednesday. As I mentioned last week, if you are finishing your CBM early and you want to go ahead and submit it, I've been checking my course shells more frequently and trying to get those scored and reviewed and back to you so you can have that and continue on. So if you have it finished and want to submit it early, please feel free to do so. I'll be checking those and get them scored and returned to you. So please reach out to me if you have any questions or if I might have overlooked something. I tried to make sure I went back and reviewed CBMs for the assignment this week. Also, another quick review of the mock IEP, the guideline, where to find it in the syllabus, and then also uh, just a little quick snippet to show you how to upload your uh, Zoom video after you've recorded it and downloaded it onto your desktop, and then go into YouTube and upload that, condense that file. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. And again, I apologize for the technical difficulties tonight due to the weather related storms that are close to me. So look forward to hearing from you soon and reviewing your CBMs and your videos. Thank you.